Hello to everyone. We are Barcelona JS. This is the February meetup, I think. So we try to run a meetup every month. You can follow us on Twitter, on the meetup group, or on the Slack channel we have. And we are looking for speakers. So anyone that has any topic or anything they want to talk, please submit a talk through the GitHub repo. There is a template for speakers and stuff, or ask us on Twitter or anywhere. So today we'll have the meetup here in Adevinta. Alison will present Adevinta, and then we'll have 2 talks, with a break between, and then pizza and beers. So please, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so basically, Adevinta, so we're like a family of marketplaces in 16 countries worldwide, mostly in Europe, but we also have a presence in South America and Northern Africa. You can see the different brands here. In Spain, we have like Fotocasa, Betaclia, InfoJobs. And then we have our headquarters here in Barcelona. So in this office, we have both of our central teams and our teams that focus on our Spanish marketplaces. So the central teams work on more projects that are used, like products or functionalities that are used by all of the marketplaces worldwide. So not just here in Spain, but also in like Italy, Morocco, Mexico, things like that. And then all the Spanish teams work on specifically for the Spanish brands. So like Vivo, Milanuncios, those ones. And so Danilo and Tudor both work for the central team. So they'll be speaking about projects that the central teams work on tonight. But other times people from Spain have also spoken at Barcelona JS, I believe. And then tonight, we also would like your help. So the central teams were trying to redesign our hiring process, basically. So we wanted to get some opinions from people outside of just Adevinta, from people in general in the tech community here in Barcelona. So if you take part in the survey, you can win either 50, 30, or 20 euros Amazon gift card. There's also QR codes outside, so don't worry if you don't get the picture now. They're pasted on the walls. So yeah, we'll do like a raffle for who wins those. So you'll put your email and your name so that we can contact you. Okay? That's it. All right, so I think Danilo is first.
Can you hear me? Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Danilo Velasquez, and the name of this talk is Measuring Page Speed and Performance, Distributed Performance Metric with Lighthouse. About me, a little about me, I'm a software engineer. I've been working in Adevinta for the past 2.5 years. I moved recently here in Adevinta the past 3 months. I've been living here in Barcelona. I love the city. And I was the former front-end lead in Yapo, one of the Adevinta branches in Chile. And yeah, this doesn't look too front-end, but it's related, so wait for it. The thing is, performance matters. We all know about that. We know that performance is important, it's about a lot of things, it's about how fast your page works, it's about revenue, it's about accessibility, it's about how cool are your page. You know, if your page is not fast enough, it's not cool enough. The thing is that, good news, performance is measurable. So for business and stakeholders, if you can't measure something, they can't know if you are improving or not. So we have a tool. It's called Lighthouse. Probably most of you already know it. It's built in the Chrome DevTools in the Audit tab. You can run it in the page you are viewing at that moment. And it gives you a lot of really cool metrics, like the first contentful paint, time to interactive, that can help you to have like an idea about how good is your page or how fast it's loading. But this is kind of old news. Probably you already know about this. So I tried to push Lighthouse in my previous job in Chile. I was working in a previous company, and users were no more than 100 people. So when I started working in Yapo, from 100 people, I started doing jobs or work or front-end for more than 1 million people per month. So I started to wonder, is our page good enough? We are delivering the best experience to our users? So I tried to do, okay, if I want to convince the stakeholders, I need to do this the right way. So I set up a workflow. In this workflow, every Monday at 2 p.m., I put a calendar meeting, sit up in my desk, and run Lighthouse from the browser, like most of us probably have done it. And then save the result as PDF. Then I grab the results and put in an internal wiki, so to give visibility to everyone to know about this. And I had to repeat this 10 times because we have different pages. Every page have different technologies. They don't work the equal. And over that is we have a desktop site and a mobile site. They are totally different technologies. So this took a lot of time. And this was every Monday after lunch. You know how it feels. So how this feels, it feels like slavery, but with extra steps. But there has to be a better way to do it. You know, this is not the best way to do it. So the question is, how can we measure performance over time and still have time for a life? So we know that Lighthouse can be run as a Node.js package. Okay, I create a Node.js script, very simple. I hard-coded an array of URLs that I wanted to test. Then the result was saved as a PDF, and I upload all the PDF at once. Now, 10 minutes, okay, it's an improvement. Then the question was, okay, this is good, this is kind of working, but can you do it for all the other marketplaces? And okay, Adevinta has presence in 16 countries, but in a lot of those countries have more than 1 or even 5 different marketplaces, like in Spain. So the question was, what my boss told me was, please scale yourself. You find a way to make this work for everyone, and this can be run in every place. So the problems started here. You know, the marketplaces and our presence is not all in Europe. They are distributed in different places. At that time, I was in Chile, so I was thinking, okay, if I run this from the central offices to Chile, it should be something like this, okay? From Spain to Chile, it should work. But the reality is that the network doesn't work like that. The network works more like this. We have one hub to England, then the United States, then to Panama, through the Panama channel, and then to Chile. And this is a very simplified way to look at it. So this takes average 350 milliseconds. So if I run this test from Europe or from Chile to Europe or to whatever the other places Adevinta is, the results are not going to be relevant because the network is different, the conditions are different. So we started thinking, what if we deploy Lighthouse instances in each country? So you can measure the page from the country people are using it. And we started to think, how can we package this? How can deploy this? And then we thought, okay, Lighthouse can be run as an Node.js application. An Node.js application can be in a container, in a Docker container. A Docker container can be deployed anywhere. And we can use Prometheus. If you're not familiar with Prometheus, it's a time series database that can store metrics. It's mostly used to store metrics. And you can create graphics and federate them, and this is pretty cool. But the thing is, okay, we can rebuild it, the script, we have the technology, but I don't want to spend a lot of money. And I don't want to spend a lot of money, deploying in every country, because if you put this in a data center, it's not be the same as if you deploy or run the code from a domestic internet service provider. If you run it from the office, probably it has a very good internet connection, but in a home or from a cell phone, it's very different. So what if we put Lighthouse inside a Raspberry Pi? A Raspberry Pi has very similarities with the mostly used architecture in the devices. So it has a processor, an ARM64 processor, I think, depending on the version of Raspberry. And it has almost the same memory and the same limitations. So the good thing is we do it. We did it. We're doing it right now. Let me show a little of demo on how it's working. So, can you see it, or I have to probably a little bigger? Okay, this is a Raspberry Pi. I'm doing SSH through a Raspberry Pi that is somewhere here in the office. We have a file with all the URLs we want to run over. And it's just run this script. The URLs are going to be parsed. It has 3 iterations, and just after it finishes, it's going to run again over the same pages. So marketplaces or users can deploy this in every country and has Lighthouse running over and over again over the set of URLs they want. And the good thing is, because the architecture is similar and the results are pretty similar. Let's wait a little for the result here. So we have here a 93% performance and time to interactive of 4 seconds. I'm testing Google, so it will be good. They invented this. And let's do the same test here with the Lighthouse in a browser. So 97% is pretty similar, the result. We can do it a little different with results in a search. So let's run this again. And it gives you a score of 81%. And if we wait here, we have a result of a performance of 75%. It's quite similar. It's not the same. There are the limitations. And that is one of the limitations of Lighthouse. It's non-deterministic. So you're not ever getting the same results. And if you are using banners, scripts, or ads, it's going to be really different, because sometimes those scripts really screw things, you know. And let's come back. So we can run Lighthouse from a container and can deploy it in a desktop machine or in a notebook that is just using space in one office, or from a Raspberry Pi. We can deliver the Raspberry Pi. They are cheap, so we can send it to every marketplace. Okay, connect, plug it, and just use it. Then the results gets uploaded to S3. And from S3, because the reports are stored just as is, we are not changing anything from the report. You can download it, create an exporter, and put it as a Prometheus metric. Or you can see the result as a result in Lighthouse using Lighthouse Viewer. Let me show this. So here is S3. The results get uploaded. This run 3 times. We have the results here, and we also have this file that it contains all the results inside. It's kind of difficult to see it, but From here is the result, the version of Lighthouse that is run, over which URL, and all the content, even the images are there. So we can create something like this. Just deploy a very simple application here. And we can see the result as the results is in Lighthouse. We can even look at the diagnostics and the recommendations. So the latest version of the report is always uploaded publicly, and if they want to use it to do something, they can use it. It's pretty straightforward. And the good thing, this probably start from the beginning, sorry, is that you can write your own exporters. So if you are rich enough and you are using Datadog or Sumo Logic, you can create your own exporter that takes the results as is in Lighthouse and convert to something to Sumo Logic or Report Them or New Relic if you are really wealthy. And with this, we built this dashboard. This is a performance dashboard. It's running in Grafana. The good thing about Grafana is it has a lot of type of data sources, so you can build a lot of data sources. And this can use Prometheus as well. And you can export the metrics and put it in a very similar way as how the metrics are shown in Lighthouse. So for example, we have the performance score. We selected the performance score because it gives you an overall of how your application is working. We also pick the page speed. This is speed index metric. The speed index metric tells you how fast your page is painted. It's not yet interactive, but it's visible. And this gives you a score compared to other pages. So if you have a 0%, okay, you are the slowest guy in the country with your page. But if you have a score over 90%, you are in the 10% most fast of the pages. We also have the time to interactive. And time to interactive tells you when the page is consistently ready to use. So you can click on links and go to places. You can push buttons and do things. And you have all these other metrics, like time to first byte. We don't consider it as a really important metric for us, but if time to first byte goes to 5 seconds, 10 seconds, yeah, there is probably a problem. Or if you are running pages that are only SSR, this metric is kind of important to you. We have the painting metrics that it tells you when your page is visible and you have something. And we also added the HTTP requests, the amount of HTTP requests. And this is very useful because if you are loading banners or you are running A/B test in your application, you can see if this goes up, insanely up. We are seeing in some places that it goes to 800 requests. Okay, something is going bad, something is not working. And also the size of the page. And there is a lot of studies that pages that if they wait more, the size is too big, the page is going to be slow, and people are going to leave. But also, with the size, you can create this. And this is an estimated amount of CO2 that you are creating every time you are entering to your page. And this is only considering the electricity that you are using, moving this amount of data from one place to the other. We are not measuring if how much the CPU is draining or battery is draining from your device. That will be really cool, but at least this gives you a number. And this is the really important thing, that performance is not only about the business, it's not only about accessibility, it's also about the environment. What you are doing is important. The better your page is, the better you are doing to the planet, or the better, or you are doing not that wrong, you know, not that bad. So, any questions? Yes.
Hi. I was wondering what you were doing to schedule the runs of these tests, whether it was linked to like pushes to a repo or it's just on a time schedule, or have you got it kind of synchronized with anything?
No, at the moment it's just you can set up the amount, how often you want to run, how many times. You can set up an interval, or you can set up just an interval of 1 millisecond, and after it finishes, it's going to run again and over and over and over and over indefinitely.
Yeah, I was just wondering how you would see the effect of making a change. Like, so how do you correlate that graph to I pushed a commit here and this is the big jump in the line or something like that?
Very good question. We are talking about the same here. You can see the metrics over time. This dashboard, this screenshot of the dashboard doesn't have this metric, but because we are using Prometheus, we also have linked our GitHub instance, and we are reporting every change. Every marketplace has a different definition on when their code is done. Some of them, when they merge to master, their code get to production immediately. But other marketplaces has a more like if you move this Jira ticket from there to there, is a thing. So what we want is to put a mark here. And in that way, you can see a mark and see the correlation between the change and when the thing happens. Thanks. Any questions? Well, another thing you can do also using this graphic too is if you can put the information about the bounce rate or the amount of visit you have, this can correlate because the more time to interactive takes a page, and if you see the correlation with a bounce rate, you can see that you can show that to the stakeholders that a slow page is equal a higher bounce rate, and that's money for them, you know. Okay, another question? So, thank you very much.
Okay, so first of all, as I was saying, we have a lot of very complex applications, and at some point it becomes difficult to manage. And that's why we're looking into a different way to architecture our applications to make them scalable and make them work over time. So I'm going to talk today about Microfrontends and a solution that's built in from our sister company in Norway called Finn. It's already deployed in production. It's called Podium. So to start with, what are microfrontends? Because if you Google like what are microfrontends, you're going to find a lot of people with different opinions. And well, I chose this one. It's an architectural style where independently deliverable front-end applications are composed into a greater whole. So what does that mean? So basically you have your page, and then you can split your page into different sub applications. So you can have your main area, you can have the header, you can have the footer. They can be owned by different teams and so on and so forth. So in the end, it is just about splitting the monolith, yet again. But this time on the front end. And a lot of the times when we open this conversation, a lot of people ask us, why? I'm like, why do you need to do it? Why do you want to change it? And I'm like, dude, really? Like, do we need to talk about this again? The backends have been doing it for like 10 years now. So, but yeah, it seems we need. So there are two main bits, two main parts of the discussion. First is the engineering part. And for this, I'm going to propose something. Let's play a game. Okay? So, tell me if you recognize the logo and if you've used it in production, and I'm going to tell you how old you are. So, Svelte, anybody? Congratulations. Reactor View? I'm a Mac. I'm cool. Angular or Backbone? I'm a PC. jQuery. Did I say more? Prototype and Scriptaculous. Dude, you're old. You've been here for some time. So the thing is, frameworks change all the time. Every couple of weeks there's a new framework, there's a new way of packaging, there's a new bundler and something. And the question is like, what frameworks will you use in 2022, sorry. Or 4 years from now? And so generally what happens is projects get old over time and frameworks get old and they get discontinued by their maintainers. So you end up with the legacy code. Because at some point, even if you write it really well and you have tests and documentation, at some point, if your framework is no longer maintained by its creators, it is legacy. And then what do? You go to the project manager, say, hi, can we rewrite the project from scratch? The project manager is going to say, dude, no. Because, yeah, no, it's serious because at some point, rewriting something from scratch, it means money for the business. It means developers working, being paid their salaries, but the business doesn't get anything new. But keeping the legacy, it's equally bad because it's increasingly difficult to maintain your code base. It's increasingly difficult to handle security issues because if a framework is discontinued, they will no longer issue security patches. And the GDPR fine is in the millions. So, and it also becomes difficult to hire people. Nobody wants to go and maintain like a Backbone JS project. Does anybody? Yeah, just no. I'm sorry, dude. We're hiring, by the way, just saying. No pressure. So then, you convince your project manager and you're like, okay, let's start again. We're going to rewrite from scratch. This time is going to be different. This time is going to be good. This time is going to be forever. Spoiler alert. Your project will become legacy. Sometimes not even by your own choice. So at some point, the frameworks you're using, they will get old. But then, the only constant that you can be sure about it is change. So just architect for change. It's going to change. Sooner or later, the brand new framework, the coolest thing that you found yesterday, tomorrow is going to be old. So for example, let's have a look at this. Let's say you have a React application, and you have a microfrontends based architecture. So each of the apps, so for example, let's say the main content, the header, the user menu are built in React. And then you start rewriting one microfrontend at a time. You're migrating to Svelte, for example, because apparently that's cool now. So, but then 3 years from now, what are you going to do? You're going to start rewriting again. But the idea of microfrontends is you don't need to rewrite the whole application. You can just rewrite bits of it. You can rewrite the things that you need to change. And it's easier to sell to the manager because you just don't tell them. You're like, no, you're just going to put like an extra point on the Jira ticket and that's it. Like on the estimation poker. You just need like a bit of team coordination, and then of course, when the new framework comes out in, 2026, which we don't know, because if you look at 6 years ago, things were very different, and 6 years from now, they're going to be even more different. So then you can start rewriting one microfrontend at a time. And this allows you to keep your application fresh over time with new frameworks and be always like on the cutting edge of things. And then there is also the collaboration bit. Because with large teams, you need to collaborate. And imagine this site. You have the header, you have the user menu, you have the footer. These things are owned by a single team. And then you have a different team of people with different objectives, with different key results and so on, that owns the main part, let's say an auto vertical. Then on the same site, which happens a lot in Adevinta, we also have a real estate vertical. So, for example, in Spain, we have Fotocasa and Coches.net. But in France, we have Le Bon Coin, which does them all. Or in Norway, Finn does them all. So this is kind of like maintainable a bit. What happens when you go to the first page? Because each of the teams, they want to have access and advertise their stuff on the first page, on the homepage where the user comes. I want my real estate, my things to be there. And then this becomes a nightmare to maintain, especially when you have a lot of teams that go over the same code base, and some team wants to do a release, other team doesn't, some team changes something that breaks the other team's stuff. Because generally you say, yeah, but we have Git and it's amazing and we use Git flow. This is how a Git merge generally looks when you have a lot of people. Are you with me? Yes, this is what we call a Git conflict. And it's not just the Git conflict. It's at some point, it's also like who is right, who has the right of way. Like if you run an A/B test and somebody else wants to run an A/B test, you cannot run two A/B tests at the same time because the results will taint each other. So somebody needs to wait. Who will wait? So we have meetings for that, but yeah. So generally, it's like who yells the loudest. So, then what you do? Like you end up with this, like we call it like workaround-oriented architecture. So I need to do my A/B test and I need to do my stuff, but without breaking the other team's stuff. So I'm going to find a way to do it without actually doing it, but that will create another problems and so on and so forth. Uncomfortably close to home, no? So. But this is a problem of organizational scalability, which becomes more and more apparent the larger the organization and the larger the team. It's the same as with AWS. Like, if you run a blog for 100 users, you don't need the cloud computing. You can just run it from your notebook. When you run a site for like 10 million users, you need the cloud. You need to scale. The same way here. You need to scale organizationally. So the larger the organization, the more visible the problem will become. So one of our teams in Norway started working on a solution called Podium. It's open source. And this aims at having microfrontends. And basically, if we look at the site, what does it do? It has something we call it the layout. And then it splits the site into different business units called podlets. So generally, for example, you can have a podlet for your main content. You can have a podlet for the footer. You can have a podlet for the sidebar. The podlets are independent of each other and can be written in different technologies. So you don't have to have React everywhere or Vue everywhere. And at some point, if you want to try a new technology, you can take like a small, low-impact podlet and just try it there. So how does it look, generally code-based? So everything starts with the layout server. This renders on the server side. And the first thing we do, we need to specify a layout. Can you... My dot is not really visible. So anyway, you create basically a layout is a blueprint where you can bring in the podlets. So imagine you take a blueprint of the site and you say, here I'm going to have a podlet for the header. Here I'm going to have a podlet for the sidebar. Here I'm going to have a podlet for the main content. And layouts can be mapped to different URLs, so you don't have to have a single layout for all the pages of your entire site. You can have layouts per URLs or per groups of URLs. They work on regular expressions. And then you have the podlet. The podlets are generally bits of JavaScript that output something to the browser. Can output HTML, can output JavaScript, and can output CSS. This is a default from the manual. So the guys that did it in Norway, they're Norwegian, so they tend to be very thorough about things. So they actually wrote a manual. And it's good for me because I could copy-paste from there. At the end, the interaction between the podlet and the layout is based on a contract. So you don't need to write your podlets with their technology. You can write them with Vue, you can write them with React, you can write them with anything that can be ran the first time on the server. So basically you can write, let's say, your sidebar in React. You have a URL that if you connect to that, you're running React or Next.js or whatever server side, gives you the response of the podlet. You inject it in the main page with all the dependencies and it will work. The only thing that you need to do is to create a manifest, which is a simple JSON that the layout server connects, gets the podlet and the content. And the manifest basically needs a name that uniquely identifies the podlet, a version. Whenever the version changes, the caching is invalidated. A content URL, which is like the entry point in the podlet. So podlets can be complex applications. They can have multiple internal URLs, but you need to specify the entry point. You can specify a fallback URL, 404, 503, whatever, when the things don't work. You can also configure podlets in the layout server. For example, if you have a small, unimportant podlet that fails, you can still display the rest of the page and just not display that. If an important podlet fails, you need to go to the 404 page. So you can also have this kind of logic. And then you can specify additional assets, external libraries, dependencies, and so on. This can be bundled automatically at build time. And then everything it gets done on the server, which is easy. Because on the server, the layout server in Podium does most of the work for you. But then you're inside the browser, and you need to operate. And at times, you need to have the podlet communicating with each other. So for example, let's say I have the user logging in. So I have a authentication podlet that handles sessions and authentication. The user logs in. And then all the other podlets need to become aware that I have a logged in user and display data that's relevant for that user. So generally for this, the Podium team also created a message bus where it works as any other message bus or notification system in the world. Generally, you can publish events or objects to a topic on a channel, and then you can have subscribers. Subscribers are functions that can just be executed whenever something comes. So for example, in my previous example, the user logs in, I get the data of the user, like the user object with everything the user has, name, whatever, and then I publish the user on this channel. And every podlet that requires this information can subscribe to the bus and listen for it, kind of like an event. So this is already in production. It's in production for Fin. It's in production for Iapo in Santiago, and now we're evaluating it for Italy, for Subito. And so far things look really good. We're very happy with the technology. But if you want to look more into Podium, I suggest go to the podiumlib.io. And if you want to see how other people have done microfrontends, there are other solutions. So, to keep it real, I'm going to present them all. So there's Luigi from SAP. The SAP company, they're very corporate. I don't know what they do, but they're really big. Yeah, well, they're kind of like an Oracle thing. Then there's Zalando, the wannabe European Amazon. Anybody works for Zalando? Okay, good. There's OpenTable, which is a website where you can book tables into restaurants. And then there's also a cool open source project called Single SPA. So try to have a look at it. If you want to look deeper into microfrontends, There's also a really cool book. It was published under O'Reilly. Have a look. And thank you. Questions?
I realized that, for example, when you're bundling JavaScript, you'll bundle some libraries per podlet, maybe?
In some cases, yes.
So do you have any strategy to minimize the size of the bundle to be too big because of duplication? Like, let's say that there's a library that you reuse in 7 different places and it takes like, I don't know, 300K.
Yes. So generally, in the you can specify external assets at build time, and then if the layout server has the same assets, like for example you're requiring Lodash, it's not going to embed Lodash 100 times, but you're going to use Lodash in every single project because like I'm too lazy to write my own force and stuff. So
it will create just one.
Yes, whenever possible. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
So sometimes they can be version conflicts. So please use semantic versions for your libraries.
And the code that you showed for the you showed some subscribers for when the user logged in. Yeah. Is that client side code or is that
client side?
So I'm wondering, are all these communicating with a different origin, or is it like a page full of iframes, or is it just one origin?
They're not iframes, so it doesn't use iframes. It just bundles. So at the end, the closest analogy would be edge side includes, ESI. So it doesn't use iframe. It just teaches bits of HTML and JavaScript coming from different sources, according to the rules of the layout. But at some point, each of the parts, it's an independent application, and doesn't have. So you don't have like a Redux or Vuex. You don't have like a data store, like an application-wide data store.
Yeah, I was just kind of surprised to see that wouldn't be handled server side. That data wouldn't come, and just each one would be logged in, and that's.
Well, it depends, because at some point, let's say I'm not logged in. I click, it logs me in, and maybe I don't want to do a full page refresh. I just want to update 3 bits here and there.
But the
go. No worries.
But the main content there, is it receiving a message in the client from the login podlet, or is it going through the server and then coming back?
No, it's in the browser.
Right. Okay, that's the part I was.
Yeah. So it's kind of like an event in the browser, in the page. I think it's actually inside. It just tags into the window object. So that much browser.
What were the main reasons that led you to write your own framework instead of using one of the
At the time, there weren't that many. So it's a good question. Why would you start your own framework when there are others out there? So microfrontends are still in their infancy. There is no established microfrontends framework. And at some point, so the project initially started as an internal tool to solve some of the problems that I presented. And then a lot of people were like, yeah, this is cool, we could use this. And then the team decided to open source it. And by open source it, 1, made it public, and 2, it kind of forced a separation of concerns. Because in the initial approach, there were a lot of things that were application fin in fin.no, Norwegian side. In this case, flowing into, so there was no clear separation. Where does Podium end and when does Fin start? Because things were like in the same repository, so it's really easy to. Having an open source project that's out there kind of forces a bit of discipline on you. Okay, yeah. No, okay, We're going to take 2 more questions, then we're going to have pizza. I'm going to be around here. So if you have more questions, please.
Is there any backend? So how do you deal with the backend communication within this framework?
So each portlet hits the backend it needs.
So no common strategy?
No. This can cause, so the thing is, when you have a lot of teams and a lot of people, the common strategy doesn't really work. Because, I don't know if you're familiar with the term design by committee. When you have a lot of people in a room, and everybody wants something different, and you try to make everybody equally unhappy, like communism, like, I'm from Romania, I lived that. So yeah, this was one of the problems. Like when you have too many people, everybody gets in the room. There's this saying, like if you Google to Wikipedia, they say like a camel is a horse that was designed by a committee. So at some point everybody has an opinion, and you need agreement, and the whole thing is at some point you have this extremely boring meeting, and everything is based on stamina. Like whoever can take it the most wins the argument.
Short question. You mentioned that you're not using iframes. How do you manage global styles and clashing between styles?
Well, generally, in this case, they use a design system. So you have a design system, and then and I think there were several talks on design systems from Barcelona JS from Typeform and so on. So then you have a design system with components, and then you just import the styles of the design system, and you just use the components from there. Okay, so I think pizza and beer. So thank you.